And all that
Yeah,
stuff.
Terrence M. Gardner.
Alrighty, perfect. Now, first question.
Known as Limey.
Say that one more time.
Terrence M. Gardner, known as Limey when I was in the Corps.
Limey. Okay, here's how we're gonna get into that actually. How did you join the Marines and how?
Why I joined the Marines
Why
and
did you join
how?
the Marines and how?
Okay. At that time, they came up with numbers where they were going to haul you into the service anyway, right? That was about that time. And rather than go in the Army, I decided, coming from England, it was a Navy tradition, more or less. We're an island, right? I was going to go in the Navy, which is basically what I always wanted to do. So I went down Navy recruiter, and he said, no, you're an alien, because I wasn't a citizen at the time. He says, we can let you in with the Filipinos as a steward. And that didn't intrigue me too much. So I went down to the Air Force with another friend of mine, and they said, you're an alien, you can't be in the Air Force. Okay. So all the guys I'd hung around with then after I got out of school, they'd all gone into the service, right? And I was left out there bumming around. And I ran into this Marine recruiter, and he says, oh yeah, show up, we'll put you in. They gave me a bus ticket down to L.A. Got down to L.A., they weighed me in, and I didn't weigh enough, so the guy gave me some money, go out eating some bananas. So I went out and ate some bananas, came back. He said, okay, you hit the scales right. You're going to have to stretch your neck a little bit because you're not tall enough. So I stretched a little bit. And he said, okay, that's great. And go wait in there. And after I waited in there, he gave me a ticket down to San Diego, and I was in the bloody Marine Corps. So I never wanted to join to become a Marine. I heard these other guys said, but I had no intention. I thought if the Marine Corps wouldn't take me, in all probability the Army wouldn't, and I'd get out from being, you know, called up and go out and fight wherever we bloody well fighting at a time. So anyway, that's the Marine Corps bit, how I got there.
Tell me about what they had you doing in the Marine Corps, first of all. You told me this briefly before, and I want to tell us, this is such a funny story about that. Carrying the radio.
Oh, when I went to boot camp, they gave you a barrage of testing to find out what the hell you were good for. When I got to boot camp, I signed up to be a heavy equipment operator because I'd learned how to drive Caterpillar tractors and so forth while I was going to high school. And they took that, but they give you these battery of tests. Evidently, it turned out I could handle the codes, Morse code and things like that. I didn't know anything about it, but their test said I could handle it. And they were going to put me in a comm section. And those radios at that time were 60 pounds plus all the other crap I had to carry. And it didn't intrigue me, and I was trying to figure out how to get out of it. They offered me officer training, Corps. I turned that down because I was really not interested in the Marine Corps as a career in the middle of boot camp, right? And then they asked for volunteers for Sea School. Got a big spark. What's Sea School? You get to go aboard a ship. Navy, just like I wanted to be, right? Terrific. And DI says, don't sign up for it. They're going to do this, that, and the other thing. So going against his better wishes, I signed up for it. All right. Then we went, boot camp finished, went infantry training. And after infantry training, they sent me down to Sea School. You want me to go on from here? Yeah. And, you know, went into Sea School, and first weekend I was there, I was restricted to base for being sloppy, things like that. And then I guess these interviews came up, you know, and I was one of those Marines at the time, and a young kid, if they said be somewhere at a certain time, I was there, you know, report to so-and-so. So evidently I reported to these rooms. Civilians asked me where I was from, you know, where you're born, London, you know, the whole bit. And then I guess we got interviewed by Bradman, same thing, you know, where were you born, what type of thing you were like, and you're gonna, I figured what was gonna happen, because they were asking for guys that were 6 feet tall, and I was 5'10" at the time, so I figured I wasn't gonna go anywhere, you know. And next thing I know, I had a clearance, and had to wait around, did MP duty, That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. Prisoner chasing. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. Pick up butts out there around MCRD, things like that, and then got called and ended up going aboard this ship. And I thought I was in seventh heaven. I was aboard a ship finally, right? And went out to sea, and then finally found out what we were doing. And I thought it was, I never thought anything about it. It's just a job, right? Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the Curtis. I mean, who were your friends? What did you guys do for fun?
Okay, now this is an entirely different story. The one thing I had going in my head that I was not an American, you know, and I'm not an Englishman anymore. I've been in America too long. And when I came to this country, I'd never been in a car before, right? And going through high school was hell because all these guys talked about was their cars. I finally got into it. He knows about that. But I never understood cars. I never understood anything. So mixing with the guys aboard ship was ridiculous. It just didn't work. I just had nothing in common, basically, with anybody. So I ended up with more friends, not friends, acquaintances in the Navy. And I very seldom ever slept down in the Marine compartment. I ended up usually up in the Navy compartments, fire control, where I could learn some stuff. So that was pretty interesting. And so as far as having real acquaintances in the Marine Corps or friends, never happened. Never really did. And I volunteered the first time because I didn't like standing watch for the mess decks, right? You had to spend 3 months down there serving food. So after that, it seems like every time it came up for a new guy to volunteer, it seems like my name got volunteered. So I spent a lot of time in the mess decks, again with the Navy rather than with the Marines. And then we got over to the islands where the bombs were and play games over there. And then I had to stand watches and do what had to be done. I got an interview with Washington one time, wanted to know why I didn't hang around with the Marines. And I was terribly belligerent at the time. I said, what's wrong? Don't I dress squared away? Aren't I always on time? Don't I do exactly what the Marine Corps asked me to do? And he says, no problem, it's just your attitude. I never did find out what that attitude was. I guess it wasn't too good. So we did the bombs and everything else, and a couple of times I got sick and ended up on, I don't know how a lot of things happened. You know, it's years and years ago, I ended up sick in Army Tripoli Hospital in Hawaii and spent 29 days there. And somewhere around I'd bought a .380 pistol, and I kept it in my locker aboard the ship. And before I came back to the ship, they figured after 30 days you're going to be shipped out, after 30 days in the hospital. And one of the sergeants evidently found, you know, cleared my locker out and found the gun in there and shot a big hole through all the lockers. And that was hushed up, but they did make me put the gun in the armory until we got off the ship. That was interesting. I forget who the sergeant was, but I think the problem of the whole deal was that he was dumb enough to take the weapon out of there and discharge it without checking to see, as a Marine should, whether it was empty or not. Yeah. It was a miniature .45, pretty much. So anyway, you know, that's about the way it went. I was there, but I wasn't there. I wasn't really part of being an American and being a Marine and being part of that whole group. And so it was difficult, really. They called me Limey, right? And that's, I hate to put it on tape, but basically at that time, that was the same as calling a black guy a nigger. And so I was pretty resentful to just about everybody. But I did learn a lot. Go ahead.
That's unfortunate, I think. Yeah, tell me about this UFO. Since you had brought it up before.
Yeah, well, it was a while back I was reading about some of these things aboard ship, you know, on the internet, and there's a quote in there about there was UFOs. And thinking back, I remember standing watch on the bow one time. We was doing something, and these bloody lights in the sky, you know, 2 of them flipping around. I never thought about flying saucers or anything like that, or, you know, that they were, I thought they were searchlights, okay? Or whatever it was from the islands, more or less. They didn't have beams, just the lights, you know, like shining up there. So I forgot all about it. But when I read this article, I remember, well, I know what happened with those. They were bouncing out around there, you know, and that's why basically I brought it up. And then come to find out, other people know about it. I didn't want to say I was a fruitcake, you know. I had enough trouble anyway without telling them that.
Oh, funny. All right. So, other than the bomb, what was the most intense moment aboard Being the Curse?
I don't think that, I've thought about that question that was coming up, but I can't really think, apart from the bomb, what really was the most intense. I think one of the really frightening times was when we was coming back with a list, when the ship had been damaged. We were coming back towards Hawaii, and we had about 11% list because the plates had been damaged on the bottom of the ship. And I was a little fearful of having to swim, really, because we'd met quite a few sharks over on the islands, and, you know, hoping the ship would make it. That was about, I think, the most intense, apart from the bomb. And that really was the most intense time of my life, let alone just aboard ship.
Describe that a little bit. What exactly happened?
Oh, physically, right? Well, you know, you're on the deck, they give you these glasses, you're told to cover up, put your hands over your eyes and things, and turn the other way. And just this one bomb went off, and you could see the light was so intense you could see your bones. And to be honest with you, at that particular time, I thought I'd just died, you know, and they'd made a mistake, and we were all just dead people. You know, then the shock wave hit. You knew exactly where you were. And I think that type of explosion really set me to thinking just about how much damage eventually was going to be done to people with that bomb. Just, and of course that all, you know, it was a flash, more or less, you know, and through your head you thought, my God, what am I doing here? What have we done? And then of course it's sort of all gone. But it's something I've thought about quite often through my life, one time or another, depending, you know, when you see the movies on TV and you see the atomic bombs and you go to these different things like Nevada, it reminds me of the same thing, that we're eventually just going to find a bigger and better way of killing ourselves. Mm.
If you could go back in time, would you watch it again?
You know, I hate these what-if questions because, you know, I had no choice at the time. I became I was inducted.
You had a choice back then. Knowing what you know now, if you had a choice.
I would hate to be, yeah, I wouldn't want to be one of the people associated with it, I don't think, to be really honest with you. I heard some of the other guys say, you know, that we did something that maybe we helped prevent World War III. All I think is that we just put it off. Eventually, well, America used the bomb, but eventually it's going to be the weapon to be used. It's like anything else. When gunpowder was invented, it was fireworks, right? Then they started blowing ourselves up. Better guns, better ways of killing each other, and we got a pretty good one now. So I don't know.
That's not the answer that I expected, but that's still pretty profound. I'll be honest. That's exactly what we're looking for. Wow. Describe what was going through your head. I mean, the feelings, the emotion.
I just did. I thought.
That's just a little bit more in detail. Just one more time.
It was that effect that really I have participated. I think I didn't think like end of the earth at that time, but I've participated in the death of hundreds of thousands of people. And I don't know whether I ask God forgiveness or not, because I'm not a real religious person. But it's something you just block out after a while, where I did.
Alrighty. What was life like after Curtis, as far as dealing with ailments?
After Curtis, dealing with what? I'm sorry.
Ailments. I mean, were you affected by the radiation?
Okay, after the Curtis, I went in the 1st Marines and, you know, played at being a Marine for a long time, garrison duty, which is, you know, you just run around and play games, and got out of the service. And I have never thought of illness, right, until recently. And I've never thought of anything being service associated. But my wife's an RN, and she says, you know, you've had back pain ever since she met me. It was right after the Marine Corps. And she says, you're deaf in one ear and can't hardly hear out of the other. She says, you've always been, you know, it's been going that way all your life. Personally, and she warned me not to say this, I can't seriously say everything was associated radiation. My kids, my 2 boys, had blood dyscrasias. They had problems with their blood. We had to get them blood transfusions, and we had to give them a lot of injections while they were growing up. And checking, you know, back, it could be associated with radiation, could not, you know. And I never really delved into it. But my wife seems to think I'm sick enough now that I should start seeing if we really do have a problem or not. I got a grandkid that's a little autistic, but whether it's because of radiation, you know, who knows? There's a lot of autistic kids in the world, right? There's a lot of people with back pain. There's a lot of people going deaf, so who knows?
Okay. If you could go back and relive your whole military experience again, what would you do differently?
Join the Navy, I think. I don't think I would have done anything. I'll elaborate on that, right? I never realized until a few years ago when I talked with my family how the Marine Corps had literally, I guess, run my life, all my life. The discipline I learned, the honor, the actually being with men, you know, of like type, how you interact with them. I think it's, let me see if I can sum it up. Always try to be on time to an appointment. You know, a little early, but never late. And it has, I think, colored the way I think all my life. Now, I didn't really realize the Marine Corps had done that. Talked to my kids, talked to my wife, and this is all it was just the Marine Corps all the way through their life when they were growing up. And that's how it's been. I didn't believe it, but when I talk to Marines up where I work, ex-Marines, and talk to people like that, and ex-servicemen, and all that kind of thing, it's a nostalgia that really hits you. It hits you behind the eyes. You get a little stinging there, and then you tend to realize that this is what the Marine Corps has done to you. It's been instilled in me through my entire life. It's just a way of life you seem to grow with.
What was your first impression of the Curtis?
Well, the only other ship I'd been on was the SS Liberté, and I was seasick the whole way from England to New York. But really, it looked like a pretty big ship at the time, but it gradually got a hell of a lot smaller while I was aboard it. And it was good. I enjoyed it, but I had nothing to compare it with, you know, so there you go.
All right, and I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, and I'm trying to put together little stories and little pieces that I can write together in one script that we can do. So, do you have any anecdotes?
Well, the only one I got is about that citizenship thing. You heard that one?
Well, and that one works. I like that. But well, I mean, the one thing on the Curtis, I mean, with your interaction with the guys, or with the Navy men, or one particular thing, and you did mention about the UFO as well. But do you have any more that you might be able to share?
No, actually, I don't think there was any. I don't think I had that much interaction with people, apart from I ran a dice game, and you took one chip out of 10 for the poker and $1 out of every 10 for the game. And the other one, I had an Italian friend of mine who was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, and he was getting ready to retire, and he supplied me with pure alcohol. And it would come in gallon cans, and we'd run that through the reefers while I was on mess duty, run it through that gate down there where nobody checked anything. And we'd run it in there, and he taught me how to make anisette, which is 50% alcohol, 50% water, and you go down to the market and you buy that anisette flavored little 1 ounce bottles, anisette flavoring that cooks use, pour it in there, and you've got pure anisette, 50%, you know. So I learned to sell those aboard ship quite a bit. So basically, you know, the Marine Corps only gave me about $400 when I got out, but I came out with a fair amount of money from different things. The other one, like I said, is the immigration thing.
Last question here. What was the highlight of this reunion?
Sorry?
What was the highlight of this reunion?
I think the highlight of any of the reunions I've been on to is that I've learned a whole lot of things. It's brought them back, things I thought I'd forgotten. You know, how people were and what other people thought. And I never really ever thought myself as a part of this group, you know, any of them. Of course, this one I found out why. Most of these guys were ahead of me. There's just a few that were, yeah. And that's what reading's done. It's put me in touch with what it was like in the past, and it's helped me associate with a lot of how my life has really been and what it's been due to. I don't think I realized for years how much it had affected me, and especially, I guess, interaction with other people at that particular time that were in the Marine Corps, interaction with other Marines. It set you on an entirely different path, I think, that you don't realize until you can take a look at it more or less from the outside and come back in and see how things are happening. You want to hear about the immigration thing, or you want me to let that go? Okay, you know I told you all this stuff. I was an alien, and then they wouldn't let me into the service, and I got it. The funny part about it is that you got that interview with the FBI. They knew I wasn't a citizen. With the captain, you know, by interview, he knew I wasn't a citizen. While I was in sea school training, my grandmother from England called and wanted to know what sort of trouble I was in, because the police had been talking to her and the neighbors, and she didn't know why and wanted to know why, and I didn't know why. You know, I had no idea. I didn't want any trouble. And next thing I got the clearance, right? We went to sea. I was out there between Bikini and Hawaii, more or less. I called up to the captain's office. The question was posed, do I want to become a citizen? And I was pretty pissed off at the world at that time. And I said, no, I have no intention of becoming a citizen. You know, and the next thing was, well, if we can get it done today rather than you walking back to Hawaii from here, could we do that? And oh, hell. And they got on the radio, and the radio was set up right there. We didn't have to go to the comm room. The radio was there. We got on the radio, and some judge in San Diego, and I can't remember his bloody name, asked me 3 or 4 questions, you know, and I couldn't answer one of them. And he says, oh, hell, I got to make you a citizen anyway. Okay? And evidently I became a citizen of the United States at that time. And then I didn't realize what happened until I saw that picture again that I dug up from one of the old newspapers. And I'm sitting there holding my certificate when they interviewed me about it. Yeah. And I guess I'd signed something at the time. But I didn't actually get my certificate until we came back, and Shore Patrol and some guys in plainclothes took me to a judge in, I guess, a federal building in San Diego here. And I held out my hand and actually got sworn in, and they gave me a citizenship papers with my picture on it. And that's how I became a citizen of this country, and it was definitely under protest. But, you know, I've been here ever since, and things have worked out. I think I was an embarrassment. Somebody slipped up. So when I hear these stories about, you know, how important top secret and these Q clearances and how important they were, I sort of chuckle. I guess I'm a little cynical because obviously if they've been that important, I want to slip through to start with. Oh God, don't put this on the air.
Oh, that's perfect.
Handle it for you? Okay.
Thank you.